Good morning for everyone joining us this morning. People are coming in. Nice to see you.
Good afternoon to some.
Yes, good morning for everyone joining us. And yes, good afternoon and good evening, indeed. Indeed. We have all the time zones today. Great people are joining us from all over the world. Great to have you. Hello everyone. Yes, please introduce yourself in the chat. It's great to meet each other, to introduce you, the region you come from, your organization as well. For sure, this is a great networking opportunity. Yeah, so we can use the chat for all of you to introduce yourself and your region and where you're coming from and organization. And then we can use the Q&A for all the tough questions we are asking Ton, Ton this morning or this afternoon.
Looking forward to that. Hi, Paul.
Yes. So I think, yes, we have a very nice audience. So shall we start? It's great to have all of you with us today. And indeed, today we can say good morning here in Brazil, 7 a.m. Good afternoon in Europe, like lunchtime, and good evening as well. In Australia, evening already. So we have the three time zones here with us today. That's amazing. And that's what WPO is about. It's about connecting our global packaging community. So very nice to meet you today. I'm Luciana Pellegrino, the president of WPO. And joining me today for this special webinar, we have our special guest, Ton Knipscheer, that is the executive director of the European Co-Packer Association, and also Nerida Kelton, that is WPO's vice president for sustainability and safe food. And in the back, we have as well Natalia from WPO Secretariat supporting us in this webinar. Before I hand over to Ton, I would like to share with you some news about WPO and what is going on, and for sure inviting you to join us and follow us. So again, good morning to everyone. Great to have the support of Nerida this morning to run this webinar this afternoon or evening in Australia. So let me share some news about WPO. I think that this opportunity is always great for us to build a common understanding what is going on, how you can engage and work together with us. This is very valuable. So the World Packaging Organization, for the ones that doesn't know us so far, we are the global institutional body for the packaging industry. We gather as members around 90 packaging institutes and associations from 63 different countries around the globe. So we aim to build this global voice for packaging, building references, and then having other members spreading it on a local level so that together we can leverage packaging development around the globe. And that's our goal, to support and to foster packaging advancement on a global level. And we have this community to share information and benchmark different experiences and know-how. And we are focusing mainly on packaging science and innovation. Sustainability and circularity is such an important topic for our industry. Packaging that saves food. Also, you can find in our website some best practices and cases on packaging that saves food. And for sure, training and expertise. That is a very important area for WPO so that we can support our members on a local level on training their industry professionals. In the next month, we will have, for example, a training program in the Philippines, also a training program in Italy and in Kenya as well. So stay tuned, and in our website, you can find more details. WPO mission is to foster better quality of life through better packaging for more people. And that is what we believe in. We believe in packaging's positive impact in our modern life in society as a strategic tool to source society for its well-being and needs, as an economic growth tool supporting countries to add value to their local goods, as a tool to supply efficiency to supply chains, supporting to prevent the loss of products, bringing sustainability to our life in society, to all supply chains, gathering and making sure that we can make all products reach their consumers or end markets in the best way. Bringing convenience and safety to consumers, a lot of convenience behind all the packaged goods. Also, coping with regulations, making sure we have the best practices in place that we can allow food safety and other topics to better serve society. And last but not least, packaging as a key to share information with consumers, to explain about it, each product, how to use it, how to save it, how to keep it. So it is really a tool that allows us as a global population to have the quality of life we have nowadays. Also, as WPO, we believe in sharing information and sharing knowledge. So this year already, we had a series of webinars going on, those focused on market trends, on market perspectives. You can find all of them at WPO YouTube account. And besides those, we also have webinars on packaging sustainability, circularity, PPWR, and others that you also can find at WPO's YouTube account. So we are trying, we have this goal to promote one webinar per month. And so far, we have already had more than 1,300 participants joining us from all corners across the globe, more than 3,400 people watching them later on at YouTube. So it's a nice audience, and it's really, we are reaching our goal to connect our global packaging community, share information and knowledge. For today, very nice group of people as well. Almost 400 people enrolled for this webinar this morning with Ton. Lots of people from Europe, I believe your fellows, Ton, all of them also members probably from ECPA. So welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining this very special conversation this morning. So this is our goal, to connect the global packaging community. And with that, before we start, I want to share with you a next event of WPO together with strategic partners in Austria, where WPO is based, and leaving the invitation for you to subscribe to join us in Austria in October for the Vienna Sustainable Food Packaging Conference. So this is a special event that is being organized by PackForce Austria. There is the local member of WPO in Austria, also FH Campus University, WPO, and UNIDO. And the goal of this event is to discuss and bring ideas and share benchmark and references and science and studies on how packaging can support to avoid food loss and food waste across global supply chains. That is a key topic in our society. We do need to reduce the rates of food loss and waste, but doing that through sustainable food systems. So what are the ways to meet there? So on October from 9th to 11th, we'll be gathered in Vienna for a 3 days event at the university, at UNIDO as well, gathering with specialists to discuss and bring references on that. And we would like you to join us. Please contact WPO Secretariat, Natalia, at the email info@worldpackaging.org for more information and to have the link to enroll in this very interesting event. Also, I would like to take this opportunity to invite all of you to run for the Gold Star Awards. Gold Star Awards is the global packaging competition. To run for the World Star, you must have won a packaging award in your region, a one that is recognized by WPO. And by doing that, you can run for this global recognition that you leverage the visibility of your company, support its competitiveness and business opportunities. For sure, the World Star Awards will recognize the efforts of your team and encourage them to go beyond on fostering new packaging solutions. So we invite you to support us to take packaging innovation beyond, to write this history with us, to be part of the Winners Gallery, and to be part as well of our packaging global trends, bringing what new, what is the innovation behind packaging for different consumer goods industries or specific areas as well. The entries are open and they go until October. So don't miss the opportunity. Please join us accessing worldstar.org. And for more information, for sure, you can at any time reach us in our secretariat as well. So we encourage you to be a Wood Star winners. And so a lot going on at WPO. That was just a starter, just a warm up for our great talk today. So I invite you to stay tuned, to follow us in social media, to check our website. We have lots of information going on in order to support you and your company on staying always up to date. What is new? What are the trends in the packaging industry? So now let's go to the topic that we are here for. We are really pleased and happy to welcome Ton as the Executive Director of the European Co-Packers Association. ECPA has become an affiliate member of WPO, and it is very important for us so that we can work closely and explore all the opportunities on co-packing. So now I'll hand over to Ton to bring some news and trends and perspectives, and afterwards, Nerida will support us with Q&A, so please send us your question through the Q&A channel, and let's explore our morning and evening and afternoon. So Ton, with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Luciana, for the introduction. And just to build on what Luciana said before about the World Packaging Awards, in a previous life, when I worked for a company called Watron, we won a World Packaging Award. And I can tell you, it really opens doors. So on that behalf, that said, for all sakes, please try it because it's definitely worth your while. So thank you very much. I hope you can all see my screen. Okay, good. Technology is always something of a challenge for boomers like me. So I'd like to take you through trends and perspectives of contract packing and contract manufacturing. So basically, it all revolved around the shifting patterns in the global supply chain. Take you through the agenda quickly. First, some introductions of people talking to you. Then I'll talk to you about some challenges we have at the moment, we're all faced with. Also, some perspective, and then changing landscapes, because I think we'll all see and we'll all come across the changing landscapes we're dealing with at the moment. And that has an impact on the changing roles in the global supply chain in packaging and packed products. So, some words about myself. Ton Knipscheer. I call myself a matchmaker in packaging. I'm an experienced packaging professional. I literally grew up in packaging. My parents used to run packaging companies, a co-packing company as well. So I literally grew up in there. It's been almost 4 decades since I've been in packaging. Since 2016, I'm an independent packaging consultant. In the previous life, I also used to be responsible for the Pringles cans, as you all may know, in Europe for about 8 years. Since 2022, I'm a board member of the European Co-packing Association, and since December last year, I'm the executive director of the ECPA. I'm a senior juror of the Annual Packaging Awards, which is a very interesting event happening in 2025 again. Lots of focus on sustainability there. I'm an active member of the Dutch Packaging Association, Dutch Packaging Professionals, and I'm a consultant at the Pack Hub. If you scan this code later on, you can find all my details. So, contract packing and contract manufacturing. It's a matter of definition. Some people call it, in the US, call it tolling or external manufacturing. Some people call it third parties production. Some people call it co-pack or co-man, and 3PL, third party logistics, fulfillment, social workshops, private label producers. Long and short is we call it CP or CM, co-packers and co-manufacturers. So what is contract packing and contract manufacturing? Is there a difference in there? Yes, there is, and yes, there isn't. So basically, let's take an example of a tea bag. If you process the tea leaves or you blend them, you are a co-manufacturer, a co-making. If you fill it into the bags, you're basically a primary co-packer. And if you then take the bags and put them into boxes or other promotional materials like displays or put a sticker on it, you're a secondary co-packer. With most of our members in Europe, also with our sister organization in the US, the CPA, we see that there is a big blend of companies doing all of this. Some specialize in secondary co-packing, some specialize in co-manufacturing. It all depends on what the market is like. As the name suggests, we're European. We are focused in Europe. We have some members and associations in North America who are working with us. We also are talking to a company in Korea who will join us later on this year. And you see that there's a big group of members in the Benelux. That's because we started in 2009 in the Benelux, so we have a high concentration of production companies, co-manufacturers and co-packers in Europe. Roughly at the moment we have about 100 members spread throughout Europe, ranging from Eastern Europe, the Nordics, UK, and the Benelux and Germany. Our members are active in all kinds of product categories, from food, fresh foods, pharmaceuticals, pet care, direct packaging, drinks, confectionery. All the big brand owners will have brands running through our members' factories. It even includes batteries or household products. We have private label producers who produce private label detergent powders for retail here in Europe. So what I would like to take you through, and this is also a bit of a personal fetish for me, some of the challenges we're currently dealing with. And this is not only in Europe, but this is also in other geographies I know. So we are at the moment, challenge number one, as we are in a perfect storm. We have rising costs of just about everything: energy, raw materials, transport, wages, which leads to inflation, which has another pressure on our margins as producers of packaging or as retailers. And this is squeezing some of our margins out. And we're only partially able to pass these price increases on to our customers, who of course are also bashed by their customers at the end. The other thing that we're facing with is less skilled operators, especially in the Western European market. With the aging population, we're seeing that we have a lot of challenges finding talent to work with us, operators, no more lifetime employment. So we need to train our operators more frequently, but that puts a lot of pressure on the operational side of things. But this is why we need machine learning, and we need more machine learning because the battle for talent is definitely on. And I think this is happening as well in other geographies. But having less skilled operators and having to train them over and over again has an impact on our output and has an impact on our quality as well. And then an interesting point, which I'm hoping to get some questions on later on. We have a critical consumer with what I call a say-do gap. With that, I mean that the consumer, if you talk to them and you ask them on a panel discussion, they will mention all about how sustainable they want to be, that they want to buy biological products, that they want to be good for the environment. But once they stand in front of the shelf, they don't always put their money where their mouth is. So basically, what I'm saying here, and this is not just me, I've heard this from various other people, if they have the option between a pack of €1 or a pack which is more sustainably packed or biological or gluten, whatever, they all buy, and this will cost 150, they'll go for the cheaper version. So this is what we mean with the say-do gap. And this is also challenging because you talk to the brand manager, you talk to the marketeers, they'll go like, no, it needs to be environmentally friendly, it needs to be more sustainable. But in reality, consumer votes with his wallet. So that's a big challenge. Another thing of a challenge at the moment, or quite a big challenge, is the increasing legislation. I tend to call this legislative obesity. There's a lot of stuff going on in especially in Europe. We have the PPWR, which is a great thing which came upon us. And some countries then like to add their own measurements on top of that. And other countries will then interpret it differently than other ones. So if you export products across the border, even in the EU, you have to deal with different legislations all the time. In the UK, which is not part of the European Union anymore, they want to export their products into Europe. They have their challenges because they have to meet European EU criteria. And these things are all coming on top of each other. So it's not that easy anymore, and you have to almost be a scientist to be able to follow what's going on. PPWR, as Luciana already referred to, where they do trainings on with the WPO. I can only recommend that you follow them because it's getting so complicated that you need scientists almost to be able to follow it. Same thing goes for the EPR, the extended producer responsibility. It is really complicated, and some of these legislations are contradictive as well. On the one hand, we are forced to use recycled content in packaging, and on the other hand, by another authority, we're not allowed to use recycled content in food packaging, for example. So that's a limbo we're in. So that's really the challenge. Then, what is a very critical situation for the European Union or for Europe as such is the level playing field. For example, the energy costs because of the conflict in Ukraine, the energy costs in Europe have risen dramatically, which means that a lot of production companies of, let's say, plastic packaging and plastics and board have had increases in prices, which were not followed in the rest of the world. So in America and in certain parts of Asia, the energy costs are considerably lower, which makes it very difficult for the European producers. And the other thing which I'm hoping to get a bit of a debate about is that the current debate on sustainability is done mostly on emotions versus facts. And we can debate about how to interpret a fact and with LCAs, and some people will say an LCA is not really objective. That you can have a discussion on that. I call this sometimes the business model of NGOs. I'm not saying that there should not be NGOs, but I'm saying that they have a business model to follow. And I'll come to that later. So littering. We have, as said, we have a growing influence of NGOs. The NGOs have the ear of the policymakers. They have the ear of the politicians. And for some reason or the other, the packaging industry, and then especially the plastic packaging industry, has not been very active in sharing their thoughts with the policymakers and the politicians. They've been sitting on their hands for the last 3 decades, and they are struggling now to cope with that. We have the consumer emotions going along with that as well. And let's face it, packaging doesn't litter. It's the consumer who puts it where it shouldn't be. And this is what I meant with the growing influence of NGOs. This is a German article where the Ellen MacArthur Foundation is demanding that we stop using flexible plastic packaging, which is a bit one-dimensional, to be honest. And this is another topic which pops up in your social media once and again, and or in other media. Ocean plastics. The people who know that 85% of ocean plastics is fishery related. It's not packaging. And even then, if it were packaging, it wasn't put there on purpose. It wasn't put there by the industry. It was put there by a consumer who didn't bother to put it in a garbage can. So who gets the blame of all this littering and stuff? It's not the consumer. They don't get the blame. They're not there anymore. It's the recognizable brands. It's this Pringles can, which is also almost deteriorated, or the Coca-Cola bottle. The Coca-Cola didn't put it on the beach, nor did the retailer, nor did the anybody else. It was the consumer who did it. But it's the producer who is responsible. The extended producer responsibility makes the consumer responsible, but the producer responsible. That's complicating things quite a lot. So let's put some perspective into this. Fit for purpose packaging, and this is one of my key fetishes. Let's go for a realistic shelf life. I know from my previous life, working for the Pringles cans, when Pringles were invented about 50 years ago, they had a shelf life of 18 months, which was because they were produced in one location in North America and shipped all over the world. So the supply chain, plus the fact that they weren't so well known in other geographies than the US, led them to collect some dust. And this is why the 18-month shelf life was quite necessary. Now, in 2024, they are well known across the globe. Everybody knows them, everybody's seen them. A lot of people consume them as well. They're being produced in multiple locations around the globe. Then do they still need 18-month shelf life? I'm not saying that they are not doing it, but this is something you always, as a brand owner or as a producer or as a retailer, need to question. Ask the question: is the shelf life still realistic? And if you're not questioning that, you could be overspecifying 95% of your product for 5% of your market, because sure, there will be some of these Pringles cans or whatever ending up in the Amazon somewhere, and there they would need 2 year shelf life perhaps, but then make that a special series and don't overspecify all the other packs which are being consumed in 3 months. And then it gets to my other favorite topic as well, food safety. Luciana was referring to 40% of food getting wasted. I took a bit of a conservative approach there. I said 30% of food is still getting wasted. And wasted is that it's not safe anymore to consume, or it's gone. And just think about the greenhouse gas effect of food waste. Apart from the ethical aspects, where we have people still starving, people still hungry, and we in the West allow 30% of our food to get wasted. It's a tricky one. And then I'll come to this point later, the impact of packaging versus product. That's quite an interesting one. And this was a slide, a picture I took from a documentary which I saw from Zac Efron about food. 1.3 billion tons of food is wasted globally each year. That's enough to feed 3 billion people. Just let that sink in for a minute. That's that's beyond belief. So, but it's still too cheap not to produce food sustainably. So this is a favorite example. Everybody who's in packaging would probably recognize this. You go to a party, you meet friends, and you talk about packaging. And especially in my circle, people in my bubble, people will talk about, what about this packaging? What about this plastic tray around a piece of steak? And should that not be more sustainable? Should that not be paper, for example? I say, well, paper doesn't have a barrier function without a plastic lamination on it. And therefore, and if you use paper, you should consume it the same day, which in nowadays households, it's just not real anymore. It's not reality. The challenge with this is that everybody sees the packaging, everybody talks about the packaging. If you look at the CO2 footprint of this, 98% of the CO2 footprint of this product is the meat. The packaging is merely 2%, if even. I've heard somebody, a professor from Wageningen University, tell me a few months ago that the highest impact in CO2 of packaging is for bottled water, which we're taken to 15%. So that is just to put things into perspective. Packaging doesn't have the highest impact, but it's the most visible. So we should take that into account when we judge about packaging, when we talk about this tray, can we not reduce it by a flow pack? Can we not reduce it by no packaging? Sure, but there's a consequence. Packaging actually protects more than it consumes. Here's a slide which I took from a presentation from Ghent University, which is quite interesting. This is from farm to fork, where is the most energy consumed? So the primary production of the product is half, let's say 50%. The primary packaging to bring it to the consumer is 6.5%. If you add the transport packaging, you're at 10%. Storing it at home and cooking at home is almost a third of the energy consumption. So packaging, although highest visible, is only a very small percentage of the energy consumption in the total product. So we should put it into perspective. So don't get upset if people talk to you about these sort of things, because they're not so well informed all of the time. So another one which I find always intriguing at parties and discussions, and this is also what we discussed at the NL Packaging Awards recently: what is sustainable? In my opinion, sustainability or sustainable is not simply the paperization of packaging. Going to a brand manager or marketeer, they'll go like, if you change this plastic into paper, we're good. Yes, but paper does not have a barrier function. Paper does not hold liquids. For that, you need a laminate, you need a plastic or a lacquer, a polymer. And the other thing which is used as a sustainability argument as well is simple lightweighting. Going from 200 micron, 200 grams of polyethylene to 150 grams of micron polyethylene, that's already been done by the purchasing teams. The purchasing teams have taken out what is there and what is unnecessary. What is not necessary anymore has already been taken out, going back from 7 microns aluminium to 6.35 micron aluminium is a nice saving, and this is how they look at it, as a saving. If you go down further, you actually start questioning the quality and the performance of the material, because with aluminium, for example, then you would go into the risk of creating pinholes, which will make the material not so good in barrier function anymore. Using avoidable laminates, and that goes back to the fit for purpose and the realistic shelf life. If you have a product which is does not necessarily need to be in the shelf for 2 years or in the kitchen cupboard, you may step away from a laminate. You can go for a mono PP or a mono PE material, or a mono what kind of material. These are available and they have a function as well. So why don't you contemplate for that? And this is what I find irritating whenever I go through a supermarket store, a supermarket, or the retailers. I see confusing information for the consumer, and sometimes it's done because they don't know any better, and sometimes it's done on purpose. So information about recycling, information about compostability, information about freshness. Sometimes these informations are contradictory and confusing the consumer. They have logos on them which the consumer cannot understand. So these are not sustainable in my humble opinion. So what is sustainable? It should be designed for recycling. When you design a pack, it should always have the end of life in mind, and otherwise you should have a solution for it. Again, it should be fit for purpose. If it's not fit for purpose, it is almost immediately a loss. And all the time, ask yourself, ask your marketeers, is this shelf life really necessary of 2 years or 1 year? Because it could be consumed in a shorter period. Then it's a quick win. This is what we call low hanging fruits. and come up with clear info for the consumer. The consumer doesn't have the time or doesn't take the time to look at all the instructions which you've scribbled on in the smallest print to what to do with the packaging after they've used it. They vote with their feet. So come up with clear and simple recycling instructions which are understandable for everybody who deals with packaging. Recently in Europe, and I think it started in the Netherlands in January 2024, they introduced a tariff differentiation for packaging waste, which simply says non-recyclable packaging gets a high waste tax and recyclable packaging gets a lower waste tax. And I think this is where the authorities are finally taking their responsibilities, because the industry can't do it alone. The retailers can't do it alone. It needs to be joint forces between the authorities and the producers. So, some changing landscapes. As we all know, change is the only constant, but currently we're dealing with some serious changes. I mean, really serious changes. Some examples. Brands were the center of the customer journey. Today's people. Marketeers amongst you will recognize this. Today, the people decide. Gen Z trusts influencers and algorithms over brand owners. Gen Z want it now, they want it the same day. And Gen Z are redefining brand loyalty. They expect brands to earn it. It's no longer a given that if a big brand owner launches a brand, it'll be there and it'll be accepted, because that's how it always worked. Not anymore. The other changes that we're coming across in the industry, not only in Europe but also in other geographies, is the personalization of packaging. I think everybody remembers the Coca-Cola bottle with your own name on it. I think some other retailers of fast-moving consumer goods use that as well. Digital print makes that possible. You can do one piece with one name on it, easy. But we also see a premiumization of packaging. We have every kind of gloss, metallization on it just to make it super premium, which gives more added value in people's perception. But that automatically brings on more SKUs, stock keeping units, which is more complexity and is very much complicated for the brand owners. And I'll come to that later when I talk about the value that contract manufacturers and contract packers can add there. And last but not least, we have a lot of shorter life cycles. Shorter life cycles combined with time to market, which is becoming so critical. And here especially is where the big brand owners, not being agile, being very corporate, sometimes are lost a bit at the moment. And this is where we see that contract packers and contract manufacturers or external manufacturers step in and help. Brings me to the changing roles. Can brand owners deal with this? Is this part of their DNA? Well, I dare say no, and here's why. Speed to market, time to market. I've been witnesses in my whole life in packaging. I've worked with lots of brand owners and I've had the discussions, and sometimes it takes up to 2 years before they reach a decision on which packaging format they want to go for or which packaging change they want to make, because they have all these corporate people who need to put their blessings on it as well. Sometimes they need 500 signatures. I was at a large cereal producer in Europe who were complaining a few years ago that they still did not have a gluten-free cereal on the market, while Tesco in the UK private label already had that. I said, it's very simple. You guys need 500 signatures in order to launch it, whilst Tesco and the private label producer will say, is it good? Is it safe? Can we do it for this price? Yes, go. And this is the difference between the big corporates. Their speed to market is not particularly well known. The growing number of SKUs also makes it more complex, because when the big corporates and the big food producers started putting their packing lines in production, they were welded down to one or two formats, and they were running at incredible speeds. But changing something like buy one get one free or 10% extra meant that they had to change the whole production. So this is already why they went to co-packers 50 years ago, and social workplaces. The shorter life cycles, a product which my parents bought had a lifespan of 10 years, 20 years. My mother probably bought it because her mother bought it. These kind of products are no longer there. They don't exist anymore. They have a life cycle of whatever, depends on the market. And the other challenging thing is about capex. So if, for example, you have a situation where the brand owner, where they finally decided what packaging format they will use, and then they finally decide which location they will produce it in, whether it's going to be Europe or America or Asia, and then which country in Europe, and then they find a factory which they have there, which may have free capacity, but then they still need to invest. Then they go back and they need to decide on the capex. And then once they've decided that, we're another few months ahead of the trail. And after that, they order the machine, and the machines, as we know currently, are between 9 and 12 months supply time. So all that time eats away from the speed to market and the shorter life cycle. So basically, it's a contradiction in terms. The core competence of a brand owner is to build brands and not necessarily to produce it. This is an example of a brand, a lifestyle brand, which is getting a more global spread at the moment. It started in the Netherlands, a brand called Rituals. They have a perfect lifestyle scheme. They come up with cosmetics, but also candles and flavor sticks. They have other products on the market, but they are a lifestyle company. They come up with brilliant concepts, brilliant packaging concepts, but they do not produce them. It's all being produced at two contract manufacturers. Because this is what they are good at, building the brand and making sure it gets the number one and number two position on the shelf, but they're not necessarily so good at actually making it. And by the time they've invested in this machine, this product may already have run out. So contract packing and contract manufacturing, or basically said, external production for a brand owner allows them flexibility. And this is what they need because, as said, the product may fail before it has hit the market. And then if you have to close down, if a big brand owner has to close a factory, it'll hit the news. If a contract packer needs to close a factory or allocate his production time to another brand, nobody will notice. And what we see as well, especially in Europe, is the growth of private label. In the European retail market, in certain categories, up to 40% of products are private labels. That means they are eaten away from the branded products. And sometimes the private labels, one example here is Lidl, who have recognized this quite well. They have come up with super premium, delicious, super premium private labels. We say that private label producers who are quite globally spread are also contract manufacturers because they're basically doing the same thing. They're producing what the customer wants at that moment, and that could change quite rapidly. Contract packers and contract manufacturers are, of course, fully certified for food and non-food because this is what they have to be. They have to be agile. That means they have all the certifications, halal, kosher, CDEX, SMETA, all these certifications. They have them, and that's sometimes quite complicated doing this with a brand owner. Last year, it was estimated that the contract packing and contract manufacturing market globally was at a revenue of $100 billion. In the next 5 years, we expect this to grow to $160 billion. That's just to put things into perspective, give it a bit of scale. This is how big the industry has become. So success factors for co-packers and co-manufacturers, scalability. If needs be, they can build an extension to their factory quite quickly, because most of the co-packers and co-manufacturers, at least in our members, are family-owned and family-run companies. So decision-making processes are quite quick, quite agile. They have capacity, or they can build capacity. They have machines, or they'll get the machines quite quickly, or they'll adapt their machines, because that's what they do all the time. This is their reason for existence. What we find as well nowadays, in 20, 30 years ago, a brand owner used to call a co-packer and say, I have a product which is now shrink wrapped in 6 bottles. It needs to be shrink wrapped in 2 bottles. Could you do this for us? And you have 2 weeks. First trucks are already on their way. That time is gone. Nowadays, our members are doing early engagement. They're talking to the brand owners. They're engaging with them. Talk about what runs well on machines, what is good for environmental aspects, sustainability, because they have that knowledge. They have the R&D center in their own teams. They have packaging technologists. We have various members who have their own packaging departments, who know all the trends which are going on. As said, they have the certifications, and their response time is critical. And of course, trained and flexible staff. Their staff can be running on one machine, going to the next machine in the next minute. In a nutshell, and concluding with this short presentation on co-packing and co-manufacturing, the most important success factor is flexibility as their reason for existence, or as my French friends say, raison d'être, is where co-packers and co-manufacturers exist, because they have to be flexible. They can't be not agile, because this is where they are filling in the gaps where the brand owners need them to help. If there are any questions, I'll happily take them through Nerida or anywhere else, and feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Ton, for your presentation. And I have a couple of questions myself before we get into the ones from the attendees.
Sure.
So sometimes co-packers and contract packers are almost an elusive bunch, and they're there and they're in the industry, but there's not, sometimes some of the small and medium-sized businesses don't really know they're there and they're available and what their benefits are. How do we globally, and obviously you've got a fantastic network in Europe and you've got an incredible network in the US, and I'm just interested to know your thoughts on how do we get that message out about the true value of your members, because they really are carrying a lot of the heavy lifting. They really are. And how do small and medium-sized businesses find out about them and how they can help them?
That's a very good question. First of all, I'd say, well, through events like this, so talking to wider audiences and getting the message across, making sure that we tell them that this is going on, but also the fact that brand owners are discovering this in North America, discovering this in Europe, and they will go ahead and talk to different people as well in the Asian market, in the African markets. We estimate that in Europe there are about 1,000 co-packers. We have 100 members roughly, so that means we still have about 900 to go. Not all will join, but this is the scope of things. And you also see, for example, big logistical companies who handle distribution for big brand owners. They'll say, well, we have the space, we have the pallets here, we can handle certain little things about that. And there's enough good examples of that, and they will spread the word and they will come out. And of course, the fact that the brand owners will go, we are not definitely focused anymore on production. Startups, they'll go like, I've come up with this great vitamin product or this great food additive. I don't even want to consider producing it myself. They'll reach out to us, to our friends in North America.
Yeah, and I think then to that point with the small and medium-sized businesses, I think collectively particularly through our network of the WPO, I think that we can continue this message and this narrative, because I really do believe there's significant benefit for the small and medium-sized businesses, as I say, to allow your members to do the heavy lifting for them. One of the other things that and I'm not going to talk about fit for purpose and functional, because I know we'll end up down a deep rabbit hole that we won't be able to get out of in 10 minutes. But I am really interested in this say-do gap. And, you know, all too often we see a lot of statistics out there in the market, which I sometimes have to take a breath on, and they say everybody in the world wants sustainable packaging and all the consumers want it and that they're going to buy it. And we all know that that isn't the reality in most countries. But I struggle with that personally and morally, because we have the same consumers complaining about plastic pollution, plastic floating in the ocean, littering, etc. But if they could just spend 2 or 3 cents more, then they would be contributing to something that has a lower environmental impact. And so I guess my question to you is, how do we as an industry get consumers to stop looking at price and really truly invest in sustainable packaging?
Can I jump in? I will
Sure.
make a very provocative comment here for you and Ton and our audience. Perhaps we have to look at consumers' perspective. We made a research here in Brazil with consumers, and came out that they are asking why us as consumers, and more than that, as individuals, because each consumer is one person, why we have to pay for sustainability. So for example, you order an Uber, and then you have the chance to pay to offset the CO2 emissions of that run. Or even when you are flying, you have the chance to pay to offset the CO2 emissions. And then consumers asked in this research, we are individuals, we have a limited budget, bills to pay, and so on. And we are buying a product from a huge company, many times a multinational one, and are responsible, that has a lot of people working to innovate and bring new solutions and so on. So what we understood from that is that we need to look at consumers' perspective, and that is, they want all products to be sustainable. They want brands or companies to bring their intelligence, their science platform and innovation platform to deliver sustainable products, not willing or needing to pay for it or to charge for it. So sustainability should be something massively available to consumers, and not these special occasions that we would need to charge for it. And that's the point. I mean, as industry, and this is really provocative, but I think this is the opportunity for us to discuss about it. If we want to achieve a different result, that is a sustainable consumption chain, a sustainable life in society, we cannot keep doing things the way we have been doing. Einstein said that was insanity. If you want to achieve a different result, you have to do something different. So what I provoke here, like, we have to rethink how we make products available, and not only exploring design for recycling, as Ton mentioned, but also exploring more reusable or refillable solutions, products as services as well. So as an industry, we should also explore new solutions and new technologies and ways to make products available, because that's the end goal, but in such a way that they are already sustainable and we are driving sustainability to consumers.
I think you're right, Luciana, on that point. And I've been working on a project in the UK for a refill slash pre-fill concept. This is where certain products which allow it with allergens and with hygiene are being filled at a co-packer in a pack which is multi-usable, and it goes to the consumer. The consumer uses it, then he sends the packaging back, or the packaging is being collected. That depends on the infrastructure, and then the packaging is washed and refilled again. And this is something where I think pre-fill versus refill is definitely something of interest. And I can only ask you to look at initiatives like Dizzy in the UK. We're working on this with the Pack Hub. A chap called Wayne Barron, who is really good at this. This is something where these sorts of initiatives need to be rethought. As you said, you need to really look at this from a different perspective. And I will tell you that brand owners are not capable of dealing with that. They cannot collect their bottles of tomato sauce. They can't get their glass jars back. This is where third parties come in. This is where a cleaner comes in. This is where a co-packer comes in. This needs to be completely thought outside the box.
Exactly.
So I'm just going to jump into a couple. I'm just mindful of time, Ton. I want to jump into a couple of questions. One of the questions is an excellent one that's coming out of Africa. Contract packing or manufacturing is an interesting conversation for developing economies. This is the only solution for SMEs who cannot afford to buy the packaging machines. How can we spread the partnership of ECPA through Africa?
Well, that's indeed a very good question, and I don't have a quick answer to that. Simple.
Well, we know
What
who
I
it is, so
do
we can
know.
put you in touch.
Okay. Reach out to me. I'm sure that Natalia will be able to share my email address. Feel free to reach out to me and let's think, let's talk, let's enter into a discussion for sure.
Perfect. Now, then another one is obviously that conversation around changing the narrative around plastics. And you mentioned that you felt that plastics hadn't done a very good job at talking to governments and NGOs. And it's not just in Europe, it's all the way around the world. I think we collectively agree on that. How do we change that narrative? What's that first step that you see?
Basically, it's plastic bashing. It's been plastic bashing for quite a long time, and every consumer has the idea if they buy a carton pack, they're hugging a tree. They're doing something right. And I'm material agnostic, so I don't mind one material or the other. But I think, to be honest, everybody knows that paper does not have a barrier. If you put liquid in a paper pack, it'll leak. Simple. So you need a polymer to protect it. And I think we, as packaging industry and as the experts, need to start picking our responsibility again and keep spreading the news that plastics is not necessarily bad. Plastics has a good aspect to it, but we should use it in the second life in a proper way. We should dispose of it in a proper way, and we should put the force and the pressure on the producers that plastic can be monomaterial, can be recyclable.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to challenge everything like the life cycle, like the shelf life. What is it you need? Do you really need it? Question it. Ask the why question. Keep asking, keep peeling the onion.
And I think that goes to that discussion that we all often have about fit for purpose and functional packaging being paramount to that first initial conversation when we're talking about design. And it has unfortunately got lost in that conversation when we're talking about sustainability, particularly because consumers are driving a lot of the decisions. But for me, as many people know, fit for purpose and functional is the first conversation, and looking at how we can ensure that we have the lowest environmental impact across product and pack across the entire value chain. And so I think that that's probably another webinar for another day, Tom, that we come back and talk about that, because I know you and I can talk about this for hours on end, but it is a critical conversation, as Luciana knows, within our sustainability and safe food packaging working group. For those who aren't familiar with our working group, this is a very important conversation for us. Food waste is a critical conversation for the WPO and improving food systems. And so having this event coming up in Austria is another important, invaluable event to have this conversation about finding that balance between packaging waste and food waste, and ensuring that we are protecting the product appropriately and extending its shelf life. So I don't know if you have any final thoughts, challenges, conversations that you would like people to go away with?
I have a provocative one. A provocative one would be, if we don't take back the initiative as the packaging industry, we will be having to follow what the legislators, influenced by the people who not necessarily have the right concept in mind, it'll be put upon us.
Yeah.
So we really have to step up and take our role.
Yeah. Yeah, but I will add to that not only the packaging industry, but brands as well, because brands are the ones that can rethink their products and say how I'm making this product available to consumers and how packaging can support me to deliver this product to consumers in a more sustainable way. So I think that we have to work closely together.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think, Ton, what would be fantastic is to really look at how we can help you to elevate the discussion around the benefits of co-packers around the world, and through the WPO network that is here tonight, or in the morning, depending on where you are. But I think that is a really important next step, is to help you to get that message out there across the world. And certainly Alex is keen to talk to you about it in Africa, and I'm sure there's others in other parts of the world that would love to have that conversation. I would like to thank you for a wonderful presentation. There's more questions than answers at the moment, and we need to have a second webinar, I believe.
I'll try and answer them later on.
And I think that I would love to hand back to Luciana to close the webinar. So thank you so much, Ton, for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Ton. It was great to hear you this morning. And I believe our audience appreciated your presentation a lot. And I have to acknowledge that we have a very kind audience sending many messages and comments on the chat. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts as well. Thank you, Nerida, for supporting me and asking good questions also to Ton. And for sure, I mean, I do believe that questions is that what drives us to the future and to new solutions and to new possibilities. So let's keep on raising new questions and working on them as a packaging and brand supply chain, so that we can deliver a greater positive impact in society. So thank you so much, Ton, Nerida, Natalia in the backstage for this webinar. It will be available at WPO's YouTube channel, so you can watch it later again if you wish, and also check on other webinars we have. And stay tuned, much more to come. Thank you, and have a great day and a great evening as well.
Thank you, everyone.
See you in Vienna.